Hi everyone. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are. Today I am going to talk about a very different topic at AppSec Village. And I'm so honored and privileged to be part of AppSec Village again this year. Even though it's virtual, but it feels that I'm connected with this village for so long. Today I'm going to talk about the curious case of knowing the unknown, especially the dependencies that we use. Let me go ahead and get started with it. Today's topic is curious case of knowing the unknown, especially the dependencies. Let's get to know what it is and what we are going to talk about today. Bit about myself. I am a security relations leader at Sneak. I'm heading the APJ region, as well as I root for pro bono work, wherein I'm one of the global board of directors at POAS, which is Open Web Application Security Project. I'm also on the review board of Black Hat Asia, Grace Hopper India, and few of the B-side conferences. I truly root for the diversity initiatives wherein I run InfoSec Girls, InfoSec Kids. Now, let's come back to the topic wherein if we talk about the basic or the usual application security development lifecycle that used to be through the waterfall model and few other models that we had, wherein the development used to be done, it used to take some time to get everything done. And then after 6 months or 1 year, the release used to happen. But then time has changed, wherein there is less of a blame game, wherein earlier, every team used to say that if there is a bug that comes, dev says security issue, security says dev issues, or ops issue, ops says that I am nowhere in the picture. So that used to be a big issue. But when it comes to security, they used to feel that, oh, this is something which is a burden on ourselves, and uh, we're just cleaning up the mess that has been created by the DevOps team. But this is the kind of culture that we need, wherein DevOps and security all need to work together to make sure that we have a harmony in place and we are avoiding all the critical issues, all the issues that we see, and especially the breaches that have gone to another level. And I'm sure they're going to rise but every day, every month, every year. The statistics we keep seeing they're exceeding the numbers, the forecasted numbers. Now, if I talk about DevOps or DevSecOps, what it helps us in providing the right observability, providing the traceability, it provides us with the confidence that yes, this is something which we can achieve in a timely manner, and it also binds us with the compliances. And we have seen in the past that there have been so many compliances which have created a lot of issues. If I talk about that, in the whole DevOps or DevSecOps pipeline, we all start with the ideation process wherein we try and do the architecture review, design reviews, then do the code review, wherein if we do the secure code review, it helps us in understanding the code better, implementing it better, then scanning it, deploying it, testing it live on the production. And there are many cases wherein when the testing is done on a certain version, there are times when that version doesn't go on the production, but instead there's something else that going to the production. Now, how critical that would be, how typical that would be, how problematic that would be. Now, if I talk about shift left, is it just enough saying that we want to shift left, wherein we are trying to enable our developers, we are trying to enable our security teams, we are trying to make sure that all the teams involved are curiously working on it, making sure that the security requirements are met, we are not vulnerable, our applications are not vulnerable. And if I talk about DevOps integration, what it entails is that starting from the beginning itself, we're talking about security, and from a code to Git repository to CI/CD to production, security has always been like a gate. But how about we involve security as an automation? We involve security as an ideation. We involve security as a culture, wherein it is not seen as an afterthought. It is not seen as something which is totally different from what we've seen in the past, wherein we all are working together to make sure that there is an harmony. If I talk about open source, everyone loves open source. I'm a huge fan of open source. But how much do we really know about our own dependencies? This much, or this much, but not the full. So when we don't have a full picture, and especially if this is our app and this is our code, how much of a code is open source? 80 to 90% of the code on the internet is open source. And that much code is open source. Do we have issues? Absolutely, we do have issues. We would be facing a lot of trouble. If I talk about containers, most of the organizations are trying to achieve containerized applications, trying to build all these things early and scale it up at the faster pace. If I talk about infrastructure as a code, that's another thing which we've started leveraging, and everything has a pros and cons. If we don't configure the infrastructure code right, we're going to be spinning the environment vulnerable from the beginning. Who can save us? Nobody can save us. And that's why there are services which can help us in securing our infrastructures. If you talk about supply chain attacks, they're on all-time high. And the latest attacks, they have actually created a lot of issues. Wherein if I talk about these event stream vulnerabilities, they've been there for so long. But did we concentrate on them? No, we did not. We just go ahead and started using them. But then realized there was some cookie data that was getting parsed, that was used for attacks. Now think about cookie data is being used for attacks. I can take over as many accounts as I want. Similarly, this is just a 40 lines of code, or like some 23 lines of code, you can say. And out of which there is some piece which is vulnerable. Are we vulnerable? Absolutely, we are vulnerable. And that's when, if let's say, while fetching the cookies, which is like the basic function an application does, it uses a mail parser. So this was one of the parsers which was actually getting downloaded 500,000 times in a month. If that's a huge number that is getting downloaded, and if that mail parser gets vulnerable. So that happened with this case, wherein the mail parser got vulnerable, where the attackers were able to put the external dependencies to it, which made the whole code vulnerable. And what happened? A lot of victims. And that's when and that's when we need to understand that how many dependencies do we have, and especially if one dependency is fixed, are there any other underlying dependencies for that which might make our code more vulnerable? So and it's not just with the application, it can be with the source code as well, it can be with the software as well, wherein we are writing a code for our softwares and we are shipping it everywhere. And if it's vulnerable from the beginning itself, can we save anyone? No. And that's what was the issue with SolarWinds that we saw. And if I talk about application security, it has become challenging. It has become innovative, wherein we need to be innovative to figure out hacks like Equifax. Like this is one hack which I always talk about. Why? Because we saw this coming. We've been using these third-party components, these party resources for so long. But how much are we fixing about it? How much concentration we have on all of these? Very little. I still see that there are organizations who are struggling to maintain the assets inventory, maintain the application libraries, that what they have in what they have in their own environment, what kind of applications they have, what is the underlying infrastructure they have. And if we don't detect fast, respond to it fast, and do it at scale, we will be in trouble. I still remember having those sleepless nights when this vulnerability came out from Apache Struts. And if I have to say who to blame, the organization which got breached or the open source package, we can't define that. The only thing that we can do is when there is a package which is vulnerable, let's update it. Let's keep a track of it. And chaos engineering is something which can help us really well in that. What it is a disciplined approach to identifying the failures even before they happen, and all the outages that they happen. And especially from the security perspective, it can actually help us. It can help us in a different way, wherein we can figure out how or how the negative test can be performed in an application, how exactly we can maintain the infrastructure and environment, which can help us in tracking the open source tools, and which can also help us in the automation, because if we don't do the automation right, we will be in trouble. We will see that humanly possible, we'll keep doing the things and making the error. But automation helps us in reducing that and putting it more innovation at front. And that also helps us in meeting the compliance standards that are there, which are actually putting us at the back seat. Think about GDPR, think about CCPA, Brazilian Act, and so many other compliances which are there. Are they just the checklist? No, they're not just the checklist, but if you don't meet them, there is heavy fine. And that's why we need to have the right kind of monitoring to measure the processes that are there. And there are some use cases which we can define via chaos engineering, starting with the incident response. Then we have security control validation, we have security observability, and compliance monitoring. And if you want to know more about chaos engineering with security, there is a wonderful book by O'Reilly, and that was written by Aaron Reinhardt and Kelly Shortridge. If I talk about DevSecOps, it is not a one-person show. It is people, process, and technology all at once, alongside the right culture. If the right culture is not cooked with these three elements, we are not going to get the dish which is called DevSecOps. Whatever we do, we can have the best of people, we can have the best of process, we can have the best of technology, but all is going to fail if we don't have the right culture. And we cannot enforce this. It has to be a mind shift that has to happen. And we talk about inviting to parties, and especially when we are in Vegas, we have so many parties, but like everywhere, it's just party, alongside a lot of knowledge. But when it comes to developer security, we need to bring them to our own discussions about security, what we have, what do we want, and how we all can achieve it together. We work with so many teams. We work with the architects, network team, resources, asset management team. So many teams are working. But how about involving all of them, bring them the right knowledge that is needed? And that's when automation helps us. Until the time we don't embrace this automation or embrace the automation piece, we will never be able to achieve what we really need to bring the right kind of culture, as well as the right kind of software or application that we need. It is very, very important to have it. And who can help us in that? Security champions. A lot of organizations are coming up with their own security champions project. Now, I'll tell you a funny story, or maybe an interesting story for me, wherein I used to work for one of the clients, wherein I just started new in this whole DevSecOps team, and there used to be Scrum calls. One day there was a critical release, and Scrum was supposed to happen at so and so time, but it happened half an hour early. And it used to be like a very short call. When I went to the room, there was no one. I went back and checked the whole, like the team who was supposed to be there. They said it happened early. I said, I didn't receive an invite. They said, we just sent it. And it was a whole clash there. But realized that there was a bond that I need to create, which only can be done when I create security champions, when I embrace the peace and respect the other people's opinion about what they have to say about certain piece. So when we started working together, we realized that, yes, this is something which is workable. This is something which is doable. So we started leveraging different people and different teams around cybersecurity, around saying that, okay, these are the things which are there. This can be useful. And after a while, there was another release, and they actually invited me early on to the discussions when even the designing was getting done. So those kind of shifts take time, but that do happen. And that's one we can actually talk about cross-skilling, sharing knowledge with each other, making sure that people are getting accustomed with it. And we only can do it by empowering our dev and ops team. It can never happen without that. And we can only take care of that by making the security everyday process. Now, let me show you. If we don't have all of these things right, what can happen? So here we are. I'm using this Java application. There are many applications which are vulnerable. So let me go ahead and register for it because I'm a new user. I'm going to try that what it is, how it is. So I'm going to try. So this is a Java application, and I'm going to try different kind of things on this application. I'm going to try and register myself. and see how exactly it can show me that what could go wrong if we don't have the right libraries in the application, or if we don't update them on time. All right, so here we are. My name is Vandana, and I'm going to say Vandana at demo.org. I'll say ABCD 1, 2, 3, 4. And you must be thinking that it is the most unsecure password. I truly agree, and this is just for the demo. I'm going to go sign up, and here I am. I'm never going to save it. I'm not going to do it, especially not in my password manager. So what I'm going to do is I have my account here. I have few details here, and I can upload some files. I can create a to-do list. And when I upload my files, it's interesting that I can see my files, which means I can upload some files in the public folder. Now there is an about section. Let's see what it has. So the first and foremost thing, if I see here that there is a struts version that this application is using. Idly, this version is very rarely seen in the application, because we all know that this was the version which was used in a UFAX breach. But if they're using, that means there's some juicy information, I can figure it out. And then there are some versions that they're using. Now here, I can create a to-do list. So I'll say Vandana, I'll say due date as this. I'll go ahead and create a to-do list. Okay, this is what I have to do. Now I'll go ahead. I know that this is a Apache version that it's using. So let me go ahead and create a to-do list with a symbol pi. And let's say this, I'm going to create it with the priority low. There is something that has changed. If you see here, the pi has been changed to ASCII character. So can I play around with it? Can I just have some malicious files to it? Let's go ahead and upload some malicious files to it. Upload files. So let's upload files. And in the file, I have some zip files. So this is the application which takes zip files. So I'm going to go ahead and open. I'm going to hit upload. It says, oh, there's something that is being uploaded to my files. But was this the only file that I had? Let's see. Let's go and check. So here I had my zip file. Now, what was there in the zip file? If you can see that I have created a path traversal, and there is so much more information. If you see here, it's just going to go, and it's just going to get some information. And then there is some information in the good.txt. This is an exploit that I've created. Now, does it do anything? Let's go ahead and figure it out. So now I have uploaded that file. If I'll go to create a to-do list, I'll say Vandana is a hacker. And if I'd say due date as this, I'm going to create this, and let's see what happens. There's something that has changed, which means Vandana is a hacker is not coming. Now, can I create something again? Vandana is not a hacker. So I'm going to say this, create a list. Oh, it still says that. Now, these are the kind of remote execution attacks that can happen, that can actually give hackers or attackers, like we are all hackers, but attackers, the juicy information that they need. This is just a basic attack that I tried, but this can go to a severe instance where we can do some kind of a execution of all these vulnerabilities. Now, so this was one thing. I can do a lot of stuff. I can figure out so many details. I have so many exploits here. Now, coming back to the presentation. So the goal here is to make sure that the ownership changes from top to bottom, bottom to up. Leadership, cascade the right information, being transparent, and making sure all the teams are binded together. In the first go, it doesn't happen, but it takes time, wherein the leadership also has to bind all the teams together. And all the ground up team, they need to speak in the leadership language, wherein they understand the numbers. So if there is something new that they want, they have to have a buy-in from the leadership. So they have to speak in their language, which actually helps in achieving shift left and top to bottom strategy or bottom to up strategy. It is a team sport. Like I said, figuring out vulnerabilities early is very, very critical. So another scenario wherein I remember that there was one vulnerability which was there as part of the application, which was a medium vulnerability. We took the acceptance, we said, okay, fine, let's get it updated in some time because we have time. So we just fixed the 15 days for it. But there was another release that came in. And with that release, that vulnerability, the medium vulnerability became critical. Now think about a medium vulnerability becoming a critical. And I missed that completely, humanly missed that. But the team which was working with me, the security champions which were actually working with me, they mentioned even before something bad could have happened, that there is a change that has happened to the severity of the vulnerability. We might need to relook it. We all worked together, we analyzed the vulnerability, and boom, we were able to figure out that yes, it's a critical vulnerability, and which actually helped us. And that's when we are connected our source code repository, we need to continuously scan them rather than just scanning it at the last and then saying done. But with every sprint, we need to scan it. And it can only be done when we connect all of our environments together, all the container registries, and scan them properly. And especially for containers, when we're talking about cloud native environments, we need to minimal scan to the base images to figure out whether they are vulnerable or not. Because if we are using vulnerable images, it's like shipping the vulnerable software to the production. We shouldn't make that mistake. And our infrastructure is vulnerable if we don't monitor or measure it, because the incidents would happen, whatever we do. We cannot say that we are 100% secure. Everyone is vulnerable. There are new changes happening every moment. When that's there, that means we need to monitor it and fix it as soon as possible before anyone comes to us. And that's when I say that let's prepare our umbrella before it rains, and be very cautious about these third-party libraries and third-party components, third-party softwares that we use. It's very, very important to hold them together. And this is never going to replace the pen testing activity. The pen testing activities will keep going on at their own pace. There are so many wonderful blogs out there around these things. And that is from my end. So you can anytime reach me on my Twitter handle, InfoSec Vandana. You can reach me on LinkedIn. I'm more than happy to have a conversation with you. My DMs are open. My LinkedIn is open for discussion. I'm very much open for any kind of feedback, inputs on the talk, or if you feel there's something more that I could have added, or there's something that you really liked. So do feel free to share your inputs. Thank you so much for joining me at DEF CON AppSec Village. It's such an honor and pleasure to be here. Thank you so much. Thank you.